It's time to change the way we talk about periods, from shame to pride, from taboo to truth, from ugh to empowered. Welcome to Let's Talk Period, brought to you by Red Diamond Sisters. Your period isn't a problem, it's your power. Welcome to our show. I'm your host, Melanie Hudson, and today our guest is Joyce Gerber. Joyce is a holistic health practitioner, educator, clinician, naturopath, regenerative nutritionist, speaker, consultant, and coach. She uses the paradigm of functional medicine in her practice. She's a certified nutritionist, colon hydrotherapist. She's also certified in iridology, herbology, shiatsu, reflexology, and neuro-linguistic programming. She's a licensed massage therapist. Joyce assists people in creating and maintaining optimal health and helps reverse disease. She's committed to offering people alternatives to drugs and surgery, and she teaches how to eat well, live well, and be well. I'm so honored to talk with you today to talk about health, Joyce. You are such a bright light. You radiate health and beauty. And I know that what you're going to share today is going to help women, it's going to help girls, it's going to help anybody who listens to feel better and have a healthier lifestyle. And so, first of all, your credentials are unbelievable. And it must have been quite a road that you've been on for the past 43 years. How in the world did you get started?
It's such a funny story. And thank you for that gracious, wonderful welcome. That was so nourishing just by itself. My big step towards independence when I was 20, I moved out of my parents' house and I was living in New York, but I moved to Miami Beach. And back then it was quite a bit safer to stick out one's thumb and hitchhike. I didn't yet have I grew up in New York City, so I didn't have a driver's license. Everybody did subways and buses. And so I put out my thumb to get somewhere. And somebody named Johnny, I wish I never got his last name, but he changed my life. He picked me up and he was totally passionate about health and nutrition, detox, juices, fasting, cleansing. And he brought me to my first natural food store and restaurant, the Health Hut in Miami Beach. And I took to it like a duck to water. I absolutely loved the food. There were books, incredible books written by people some of whom had been on death's door, that sick, and they regained their health using basically food as medicine and learning the methods of using food as medicine and detoxification and all of the beautiful secrets of nature. And that was what got me started on this whole path.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic. I love it. Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, now your specialty is helping people gain radiant health and to feel healthy. And as you know, this whole mission of Red Diamond Sisters is to help people, feel more comfortable when they're having their periods. And so, is there a connection between overall health and like painful periods and cramps and bloating and PMS? And if so, can you just, give us a little insight on that?
Sure. Many years ago, I came across a book called Natural Progesterone, and it was by a Dr. John Lee. And I was introduced to the world of hormones, estrogen and progesterone. And so there was this whole explanation of that, our hormones need to be in a certain ratio and a certain balance. And so many women who are having menstrual discomfort, bloating, weight gain, cysts and lumps and bumps and tumors, heavy periods, a lot of that comes from estrogen dominance. So when there is more estrogen proportionally to progesterone, those are some of the symptoms of estrogen dominance. And things like heavy animal protein use, bad fats and oils, synthetic beauty products, health and beauty products, toilet articles, all of those they mimic estrogen in the body. And so when there's it's out of balance when there's more estrogen than progesterone, those are the symptoms that happen. And I find that, I mean, in my work, I very much recommend a plant-based way of eating because it's the plant world that has all of the medicinal phytonutrients and the phytochemicals. And I mean, as a naturopath and somebody who works using the principles of functional medicine, one thing I've learned, no matter what the ailment is, no matter what the disease is, there are two main causes. There's either poisons that have accumulated in the body and don't come out, and they impede the body's function. And the other half of the equation is nutritional deficiency. And we're living in a culture now where our soil is totally depleted. In the past, there was so many minerals in the earth, and you might be hearing a term called regenerative agriculture, regenerative farming. And that's all about putting the nutrients back in the soil. And, one of the things we do in growing our food is, I remember this, I think from elementary school or junior high, they talk about crop rotation, that you're not supposed to grow the same crop for 7 years. You're supposed to rotate the soil and grow different things. And with our profit motive culture right now, where, just getting money as fast as you can, what they're growing a huge overabundance of is corn and soy, and they're mostly genetically modified, and they feed them to animals, which is an unnatural diet for animals. So animals, half of them are getting sick and dying. Then they feed them all kinds of antibiotics to keep them alive. They feed animals hormones to fatten them up faster, to get them to market faster and make money faster. And then the poor women and men, that stuff goes right into our reproductive organs.
Oh my gosh.
So it always goes back to, we must get the poisons and chemicals and hormones out of our food and our bodies, and we must get high octane fuel into our bodies. That's what it always boils down to.
Wow. That's so it's scary when you think about it because especially, the American diet is mostly, meat. And a lot of us, either don't have access to the organic, non-hormone type of meats and that type of thing, or it's just so expensive. And so people are poisoning themselves basically. And so there's a connection between these poisons in the body and then the estrogen, the overproduction of estrogen, which contributes to the cramps and the bloating and the PMS. Oh my gosh. So the plant-based diet is kind of what you're recommending. So now when you talk about using food like medicine, when you hear about a woman who's sluggish and she suffers through her periods and she's um not even just sluggish during her period, but all month long, but then her periods, she's bedridden or in extreme pain because so many people can't go to work because their period cramps are so debilitating. How do you recommend food be used for as medicine for somebody like that, or for everybody, for anybody?
It's funny when you were talking about all those symptoms. I mean, hormone imbalance is one reason, but there's many other reasons. And so, for whatever the origin of the symptom or discomfort, the remedy is the same. So, for example, it's more of a plant-based diet that will kind of shift away from the estrogen dominance. Um, Now, the foods that are most medicinal, and I think this will make sense to you, are the foods that are living. when we start to decline and deteriorate, or our cells degenerate, we have something in our cells called mitochondria, and they're the little energy factories in the cells. So when they start to decline, our health is declining. And so, and that means, and the mitochondria are very important for energy in the body. So when we're losing energy in our cells, infusing our cells with living food, food that has not been cooked or heated in any way. The green foods, green is like the blood of a plant. And it's very similar to hemoglobin in our blood. Hemoglobin is what is carrying the oxygen. We need oxygen more than anything. And so using the green living foods. Now, when you cook a green food or steam it, you still certainly have minerals. But when you have the food alive, it's full of enzymes. We need enzymes for every body function. We need minerals for every body function. And those are the two things missing so much. I mean, most people shop from the middle of the supermarket or grocery store. And that's where all of the crap is. You might find the produce on one side. And so using food as medicine is a combination of using the highest octane fuel, the foods that are rich in minerals and enzymes and chlorophyll. It also means, digestion requires more energy than any other body function. So when we lighten the amount of digestive energy needed, we have all that energy to eat up, dissolve, and eliminate whatever's toxic. So when we do a cleanse, what I mean by a cleanse or detoxification, I'm not necessarily talking about 100% water fast. I know people are doing that. I don't particularly recommend it because when you're using superfoods, and superfoods are powders, or the ones I work with are organic, dehydrated fruits, vegetables, herbs, single-celled organisms like spirulina and chlorella, and all of these incredible, and things like quinoa, which, when grains are sprouted, non-glutinous grains, when they are sprouted, they're more like a vegetable. So when you're putting those things into your body, let's say mixing it with water or making fresh squeezed vegetable juice, you've got all that alkalinity. Okay, that's another thing I didn't mention. So the blood is slightly alkaline. And Melanie, I'm going to rely on you to bring me back because I might digress. You bring me back.
Well, I already have a question in mind. This is amazing. Anyway, go ahead.
Okay.
This is fascinating.
Well, what I was saying is the minerals and the enzymes are essential. The green is very important. Now, the blood is slightly alkaline. Now, this is such a clear memory for me from high school chemistry. Mrs. Fisher put a whiteboard on the blackboard, and she had this chart of what's called the elements. So basically, everything in life is created from elements, and then they're made up of atoms. So the elements, after they can be alkaline or acid. And alkaline, another term for alkaline, is base. So right, and it goes from 0 to 14. 7 is right in the middle, so it's neutral. Our blood is slightly alkaline in a healthy bloodstream. It's supposed to be between 7.35 and 7.45 alkaline. The reason this is so important is 80% of the foods that we eat are acid forming. So we actually need to have 80% alkaline foods, 20% acid foods. So the alkaline foods are fresh fruit, fresh vegetables, fruits, vegetables, sprouts, fresh squeezed juices, the grains, millet, quinoa, and amaranth, almonds, raw sauerkraut, unpasteurized miso, seaweed, and pretty much all the other foods are acidic. So when you're out of balance, so we'll use this pen, let's say, to show, like if we've got a scale, in the middle is 7. So when you're really out of balance and quite acidic, Heavy animal foods, dairy, refined starch, breads, pasta, sweet, all kinds of desserts. It's like this. The acid is way up and the alkaline is way down. So for a period of time to balance it, we might do a very strong living alkaline diet. And then little by little, as we regain our balance, we can have a bigger variety. So alkalinity, minerals, enzymes, green, that's all essential for cleansing and for good health.
Wow, fantastic. So the question that has been that since you've been talking about this science, basically, it's so foreign to the American family. I know that the information's got to be out there somewhere, but it's not easy to find. And it's people like you to help us. And I know one of the services that you provide is to go into somebody's kitchen and actually help them have a healthy kitchen. So now, what would you do? Do you work with families who have teens who might have health issues? How does that work? Can you kind of
Sure,
describe
sure,
a scenario?
sure. And I work with a lot of people online as well. So, when I'm working with somebody virtually, it's easy enough for them to show me their kitchen. And, I can look at their shelves virtually as well as in person. I provide a service now I provide a 90-day program called Extreme Health in 90 Days. So those services are a part of it, but they can also be just individual services. So part of that is I take people through a health food store, a guided tour through the health food store, and I take them through every shelf of the store. It usually takes about 2 hours at least. And I take them through every shelf. And what I it's so important that health be sustainable for people.
Yes.
So, I'm not just looking to get people on and off a program, on and off a cleanse. The whole idea is to create a healthy lifestyle, a healthy way of life. That means you've got to be able to implement it easily. If the first things you feel are deprived or overwhelmed, you're not going to stick with it. But if it can be enjoyable, if you can work out a rhythm where, it's like, oh, I can do this. I see like, I have for healthy shopping, um, I take people to the whole grain section. I take people to the bean, seed, and nut section. Those are the plant-based proteins. We'll go to the produce. And I'll talk about the benefits of the green foods above the earth, getting sunlight. And then the benefits of the root vegetables from underground, the benefits of the cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, kale, they all have their benefits. So, in fact, there's this system known as macrobiotics. At the same time that I was introduced to the use of living foods to regain our health, I was also introduced to something called macrobiotics, which is more from the Eastern cultures. And they were definitely plant-based. And, for good health every day, they'd have their staple grain because the grains are high in certain amino acids, which are the smallest building blocks of protein. And where they're low, if there are certain amino acids they're low in, well, the beans, seeds, and nuts are high in those amino acids. So when you have a grain and a bean, whether it's together at the same meal or just at some point during the day, you've got your balance of the amino acids you need for the day.
Huh.
And so this is how you kind of play around. So doing a healthy kitchen for somebody, besides showing them the healthy foods to use, and where they store it in their cupboards. They've got their grains, their beans, the right vegetables in the refrigerator. I want to make sure they don't have Teflon pans that have coating that is so unhealthy. I want to make sure that the oils they have, in the supermarket, you see oil and it's very clear, pure vegetable oil. That pure vegetable oil, a lot of it is genetically modified, like canola oil. And I was listening to this recently, canola oil, in order to have it be, where it can fool people into thinking it's edible, you have to take the smell out of it. It has to be, heated to such a high temperature. And many of the oils in the supermarket, when they're clear, they're heated to a very high temperature, so they're carcinogenic. But the manufacturers say it looks prettier on the shelf to be clear. The best oils today to be using are extra, and it should always be organic, and it should say extra virgin olive oil, cold pressed, extra virgin organic coconut oil, avocado oil. Um, People who do use any dairy, if it's organic ghee, GHEE, or organic grass-fed butter, that's so much better than these synthetic, um, very chemicalized and overprocessed oils that we have. So I'm showing that to them in their kitchen. They need a steamer. It's good to have juicers. It's good to have maybe pressure cooker type thing. What are they? Salad spinners, to drain the produce. All of the equipment that makes your kitchen friendly. Oh, I have everything I need to put together a meal healthfully. That's the kind of thing I do.
Fantastic. It is fantastic. And then when you have actually gotten into someone's kitchen, have you had feedback saying that they have your clients are feeling better, their symptoms are reducing, their negative symptoms? And have you had any experiences where there are actually girls or women that have recovered from difficult menstruation that you're aware of? And if
Well,
not, that's okay too, because I know that's
no, no, I've
personal
got
to ask somebody in their
No, no, no.
kitchen,
I've
hey.
had, I've had, no, I've had, and it wasn't specifically in the kitchen. I mean, the first thing that came to mind was one of the things I've done in my life is being a colon hydrotherapist, using water very gently internally. It's kind of introduced into the colon, the large intestine. And so I had a woman. I didn't know she did not put it on her health form. If she did, I might not have seen her. But she told me afterwards that she was diagnosed with something called diverticulitis. Um, when it's in the inflamed stage, it's itis. Whenever you hear a condition and the end of it is itis, bronchitis, colitis, it always means inflammation. So diverticulitis is where there's so much internal pressure in the large intestine or colon that little pockets pop out on the walls of the intestine. And they get inflamed, they get irritated, they get infected. So this woman, I'll call her Andrea, when she came into the office, I found out afterwards that for 4 years, she was in terrible pain. She was on something called Flagyl, a very potent drug for 4 years, and they wanted to do surgery. Well, I met her and her husband at Whole Foods Market. I took them, we spent, I think, maybe 3 hours in that store, and I took them through every shelf and told her what to buy and what to not buy. Um, I put her on a superfood program where most of her food, the majority of food was these plant-based powders that she would mix with water and maybe some fruits to flavor it and have it twice a day. And she could still have one nice, healthy meal. And in 1 month, she was out of pain. She was off the Flagyl. And when she went to the doctor, she didn't need surgery.
Oh,
And coincidentally, her husband was dealing with blood sugar issues and diabetes. Well, he went along that guided tour and changed his diet just like she did, and his blood sugar normalized. That was, and they were, I don't know, maybe at the time, maybe they were in their 40s. But I had a young woman, she was in her 20s when I lived in New York and had my practice there, Alicia. And she used to come just for massage. That was my first license, a massage license. One day she came to me for her massage and she said, I just came from my doctor and he said that I have a cyst on my ovary, 3 times the size of the ovary, and they want to remove my ovary. I said, let's get you on a program. She started coming for colon therapy to clean the old waste out of the colon, which is our sewage system. So, as I said at the beginning, good health is a combination of getting the junk out and putting the high octane fuel in. Um, in her case, I didn't put her on a total fast or cleanse, but she had a lot of fresh squeezed juice. That this was before superfood. She eliminated all alcohol, caffeine, animal products, dairy, sugar. Um, and in 1 month, she came to me every week for colon therapy. On the days she didn't see me, she gave herself enemas, which are, just do it yourself at home using water in the intestine to flush out the waste. And 1 month later, the cyst was gone.
Oh my gosh.
It was so exciting, many years.
Unbelievable.
And then she had a second opinion, it was gone. Years later, I moved out to California in 93, and I used to advertise in the Whole Life Times. She found my ad, she called me, and we didn't get to see each other, but she said, all those years, I think she was my client in the 80s, and she saw my ad somewhere in the 90s, and she said, all these years I have followed your health principles, and I've been fine. So it's so gratifying for me to
Yes.
have experiences like this. My
Yes.
own
Oh,
mother. Can I share one more?
okay, but I do have
Okay,
several more questions to
okay,
ask.
okay.
In fact, because it's exactly right in line. Because you've had these people who came to you because they knew that they needed some healing. They were open to alternative healing. So how would you recommend the moms today, who have these daughters, and right now people are eating junk food. They eat Pop Tarts in the morning because they're in a hurry. Young kids are drinking coffee in the morning, which I don't want to demonize coffee too badly because I drink coffee, but I don't know if kids should be drinking coffee. So, what kind of motivational advice could you give a mom or a father, the parents who have these teen children, especially the girls who, if they would change their lifestyle, they would be a million times better. How would you approach that?
Well, again, it has, in the intro that you read about me, fun and simple, fun and delicious. I feel like that's so important. And like the guided tour through the health food store is really fun. Um, so I would say whether you're local watching this or you're not, we can arrange to do that.
Ah,
And you're going into a store in your part of town and you've got your camera or your phone and I've got mine, and we can do it that way. We can do a virtual tour. Um, Basically, it's learning what the healthy foods are. What the hell, again, fruits, vegetables, grain, beans, uh, if they're, and nuts and seeds sometimes are a bit difficult to digest. So there are raw organic nut butters and seed butters. You can sprout those foods. I mean, everybody's very individual, but once you know the healthy foods to have on your plate in an ongoing way, you know the kind of oils, you know the kind of sweeteners to use. You don't want to use white flour, white sugar. And by the way, white flour turns to sugar the minute you chew it. So if you're having pasta or bread, and on the label it says enriched, ENRICHED, what that means is, um, if I could take a minute, I'll try to do
sure.
this quick.
Yes.
Grains have three layers: the outer bran, the middle germ, and then in the very center, the endosperm. The
Hmm.
grain, the bran on the outside and the germ in the middle, they're the ones that have the fiber. They're the ones that have the minerals, the nutrients, the essential oils. And the endosperm in the very center is basically pure starch. And most of our manufacturers take away the bran and the germ. So we're buying breads in the store, we're buying pasta, white rice, and it's just pure starch, empty calories. And then by enriched, what they do is they add synthetic vitamins and minerals. So it looks good on the package, and they'll add a little food dye so the bread might be brown, but it's really white bread. And and there are people who've developed diabetes who don't eat sugar, but they develop diabetes by having these refined flour products. So there's a lot hidden from the public. So, learning your healthy foods, learning the right oils, learning the right sweeteners, like coconut sugar is probably among the best. Stevia, monk fruit, um, and then things like raw honey, maple syrup, grade B is the best. Um, those are the more natural sweeteners. Things like coconut sugar or stevia or xylitol, they don't affect the blood sugar at all. So, it's very important today to not, our doctors get little to none of nutritional content in their studies. So at this point, everybody has to take responsibility and seek out someone, learn, read, watch information about nutrition and where to get your nutrients. And it's vital to do that today.
Fantastic. Oh my gosh. Well, you actually answered a question that I was going to ask, which is what are the recommendations that you would have for someone that doesn't have access to like high quality foods or a nutritionist like you or someone who is a holistic healer. But you've kind of already answered that, which is basically to learn and to really just go for the whole foods, which is go for the vegetables, the nuts, the seeds, the nut butters. And you know what? That's so fascinating too about the pastas and white bread. I knew white bread was not good for you. I didn't realize that it directly relates to sugar in the body. And this kind of thing, it's really important. And I know that things like uh vegetables and nuts and seeds are accessible to just about everybody, hopefully. Um, So, one thing that I wanted to ask about that you use in your therapy, in your practice, and it's a new therapy. It's called red light. And because you tout it as another healing modality. So, what exactly is red light therapy? And how can it be used to help women who might suffer from menstrual distress?
Actually, it's not such a new therapy. I think it's just getting a lot of more press these days. It's been around for maybe 50 years or so.
I
Um,
have no idea.
but red light frequencies. So whether we're getting nourishment from the highest light frequencies from the sun or we're getting nourishment from food, ultimately the idea is the same. We're affecting the body on a cellular level. We're nourishing it on a cellular level. So I just want to add before I forget,
Sure.
um, when you summed it up about the foods, what's also really important today and what I work with a lot are these superfoods, because at this point, just having healthy food on a plate, when you are really out of balance or you've been diagnosed with a condition or you have really uncomfortable symptoms, a lot of times just getting a plate of healthy food isn't enough. There's some real deficiencies that have to be so therapeutic amounts of nutrients sometimes are needed. And that's where the superfoods are vital. So I'm working with an organic company. It's kind of like an online buying club, because I find that the quality in places like Whole Foods isn't there as much. So people can just go, if you go to my website, I've got some information about this, and you can just
Yes.
go and order these superfoods. They're the highest quality organic. They ship it to your door. Everything comes with a 60-day money back guarantee. So that's one very easy way to get therapeutic amounts of plant foods that you wouldn't necessarily get, just from your farmer's market or from a health food store. And in the same way, if you want to give your body healing through light frequencies, so the red light bed looks like a tanning bed. And so, and now there's a difference between red light and near infrared. So red light is often used in what they call the red light saunas. And that kind of depends on heat. And so the benefit is you're sweating out toxins through your pores. Now that's good, but that's totally different than near infrared, which penetrates the cell membrane, goes deeply into the cell, and affects those little energy factories called mitochondria. In fact, you don't want sweating for that. You don't want the circulation to come close to the surfaces of the skin, and you're not looking to get heat. You're looking to penetrate those near infrared frequencies so that they regenerate and restore and repair the mitochondria. And when that happens, every cell in your body is working better, which means the organs and the systems are working better. And that's exactly what happens with nutrition you put in your mouth as well. So that's why I've loved, and for a lot of people, working nutritionally, um, it's not as quick. It's hard for people to change their habits. And sometimes it's a little slower process to make those changes. So if somebody's in terrible pain and suffering while they're making the nutritional changes, if I put them in a series of sessions in the bed, 3 times a week over, let's say, a month, the changes are phenomenal. And so being able to work with light and nourishment is so exciting to me.
I tell you, you're amazing. And the thing I get about you too is that you're very compassionate and loving and caring. I can just tell. And so when you're with your clients, you probably really motivate them. And then, just like you said, it's not easy to change a dietary habit. And, especially if a family has grown up every Sunday, they eat eggs and bacon and waffles and white bread pancakes and then to tell them, this is making you not feel great. But then speaking to them in the gentle, beautiful way and the fun way that you describe, with the going to the store and checking out all the foods. I mean, you're probably extremely motivating, which I'm sure your clients love. I am sure your clients love. Oh my gosh. So do you have any kinds of last things that you would like to say, maybe to moms or daughters to help them feel better, to learn how to take care of their bodies for optimal health, not just for, relief of cramps and bloating, but for everyday positive life? Do you have any words
Well,
of
I'll,
wisdom?
I'll, I'll build on what you just said. So it's like what is the truth is it takes the body 3 days to eliminate any addictive toxic substance. So if it's alcohol, if it's caffeine, if it's sugar, 3 days, uh, it leaves the body within 3 days. So I find that that's the time if you're using, and you could do this as a family, if you're using the superfoods together, the daughter and the mother, and you all, let's say, do it together. So it's like a fun thing. Hey, we're going to go on this cleanse together. We're going to make some shakes that are going to taste good. We're going to get rid of the stuff that's causing cravings because in 3 days we won't crave anymore. And we're going to the natural foods market and we're getting these foods. We've got these recipes. Let's make them together. I think the more I always like to focus on what we can add. What can we do? Not what can't we do? That's like that stern school marm, it just evokes, just like I'm deprived, I'm overwhelmed, it doesn't taste good. But if you can introduce stuff that's yummy, I mean, there are desserts that use coconut sugar that are gluten-free. Um, and there are also transitional foods. So there are, the typical what do you call that? The smoked foods, the processed foods, the deli foods. They're so unhealthy, and that'll definitely cause pain in a woman's body for sure. So there's something in the natural foods market called Fakin bacon. It's made from tempeh, Tempeh. So tempeh is a fermented soybean, and it's organic. And so, you can make tempeh strips. You can put it in a ceramic coated fry pan rather than a Teflon one and just heat up some of the strips. There's sprouted bread that doesn't have gluten. You can toast the bread. You can, there's healthy mayonnaise. You spread that on the bread. You put the tempeh slices on it, lettuce, tomato, onion, healthy pickle. And it's like a BLT, but a healthier, better version, but it tastes great. So I get very excited about turning people onto something that's going to taste yummy. I love that. I feel like I'm a hostess creating a great meal for somebody, you know.
I think you're on to something. I think you ought to create a TV show called
I'll
Eating the
hire you as my
Healthiest Eating
producer.
Possible. Alternatives to the worst food with the best food. I mean, that sounds great. That sounds so great and so important. And I think I have asked every question that I have because it's just overall, your knowledge, by the way, is really incredible. And I'm so grateful, Joyce, that you have imparted your wisdom, your years and years of experience, your way of explaining everything has been so helpful. And I'm sure that anybody who watches this video is going to feel motivated. I feel motivated. I thought I was a healthy eater. Well, come to find out, I'm not so healthy. I need to clean it up a little bit. And I feel motivated to do it. So I'm sure that you have made an impact on whoever watches this. And I'm just incredibly grateful. I'm just incredibly grateful. I'm going to put you in view so that everybody can see you. Okay. So also, how can we find out about you? Anybody who wants to learn more about your services and how they may actually bring you on board to really help them out.
Sure. My website is healthisaninsidejob.com. Healthisaninsidejob.com. And it has my services and products and a lot of information. It talks about the extreme health in 90 days. There's information there about red light therapy. You're welcome to call me at 310-980-7665. Also, if you go to Health is an Inside Job and you scroll to the bottom, there's a contact form, and you can simply type in your name and your number and email and any question you have, and I'll get back to you.
Wonderful. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you so, so very much. This has been incredible.
Oh.
And I know our Red Diamond sister, you're a true Red Diamond sister because you care. You care for the health of the planet. So thank you very much for being on our show, for imparting your valuable, valuable wisdom and information. And I'd love to talk with you again soon, and we'll get your information out there into the world. We need you. We need you.
I've loved doing this. Thank you so much. It was great being with you.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you.